The sanctity of human life is under assault. Find out how and what you can do about it in this edition of Life Matters with Brian Johnston, Western Regional Director of the National Right to Life Committee. He has served in many capacities while advocating for innocent lives. As California Commissioner on Aging, as Chairman of the California Pro-Life Council, on the board of the National Legal Center for the Medically Dependent and Disabled. And now here's our host, Brian Johnston.
Welcome back to Life Matters. We're your program on the right to life, on the culture that emanates from that very basic premise, that idea, and on the battle of ideas that is raging now in order to close down any discussion of what the right to life is. If you don't think we're in a battle, then you've already lost. It's a battle of ideas. And in today's program, we're going to talk about language, because language is how ideas are communicated. And it is the language that is at stake. It's the language that's being fought over. We have a unique opportunity. I have some interviews with pro-abortion advocates where they talk about the nature of language and how they have to fight now to control the language if they want to continue promoting their worldview of disposing of innocent human babies in the womb. They have to control the language. They do not want the humanity of the child to be even thought about. If you want some real insight on the importance of language and the culture in which you're living now, read the book 1984. If you've never read the book 1984, you've missed out. If you only have a little time, you should read the appendix to 1984. In the appendix to 1984, George Orwell spells out the principles of newspeak. Newspeak was the official language of the time. You may not realize, but right now there is official language. Have you heard of the AP style book? That reporters have to follow the AP style book. But that's just a small part of it. If you're in any way involved in academia, you know that there's an incredible pressure on the language that you use, and you'll be forcefully corrected if you use the wrong terms. Do you know right now in California, you cannot misgender an individual, that's actually against the law. You've created an offense. If you've called someone a gender that they certainly appear to be, but they wish to identify as another gender, you've used offensive language. Well, that's just part of this. And this is a natural result. We're killing human beings in the womb, and we've accepted it as a culture. And it's been the language of choice, as you know. And choice means a lot more than merely abortion. They substitute the word choice to mean abortion. But what choice means is abortion because I've chosen to get one. Abortion at any time, for any reason, or for no reason in particular, just for choice. And this is frightening if you think about it. So we're in a world of language, and the language battle is essential for you to know. The good news is we're winning, even according to pro-choice advocates. You're going to hear from them in a little bit. We're going to talk about some of the changes, Planned Parenthood having to fire its president, some of the things coming down on the federal level. But know this, that your language is critically important. Think about the language that you use in this battle. This isn't a battle of our religion, our faith. This is a battle about objective facts. And the facts are on our side. And facts are terrible things to waste. We'll be right back.
If you have questions or comments for Life Matters, call 800-924-2490. Give us your name and the town you're calling from and a quick question or comment. Life Matters continues after this.
They say sunlight is the best disinfectant. Did you know that California has a law in the books that says you need to protect babies born alive in the course of an abortion? But that law is simply ignored. The current legislature and Governor Newsom's administration support all abortions all the time. And they simply do not examine or regulate the practice even though our tax dollars pay for it. We need to shine a light on this cover-up of the abortion industry in our state. Go to californiaprolife.org and click on the Light of Day project. We need the facts about late-term abortion to be examined and made known. We need the government doing its job to protect lives. We need the light of day on this. Go to californiaprolife.org.
Well, hi. I just wanted to thank you for joining me. You know, I have good friends, children, young adults, and adults that have Down syndrome. And they are so loved. Their parents love them so much because they're the happiest people you'd ever want to know. I really love them. I'm going to tell you something, though, that's rather frightening. The government of France has now prohibited showing positive images of Down syndrome children and letting parents know how lovable they are. That's an actual law in France. Here in the U.S., 80-some-odd% of Down syndrome kids are killed by abortion before they're born. In France, it's 96%. So we're not a whole lot better. If you'd like to help out, you can go to the National Down Syndrome Society, ndss.org, to help out. That's ndss.org. We really are in a battle of ideas, and lives really are at stake.
You know about our car donation program at California Pro-Life. We use one of the most respected programs in the nation. Go to the California Pro-Life page, californiaprolife.org. Scroll to the bottom and click on Donate My Car. It's that easy. Did you know you can also donate any vehicle, boat, motorhome, or even personal property? If you are nearing retirement age, you can also get a tax deduction by earmarking a portion of your upcoming compulsory distributions from your 401k. Just email us for information. California Pro-Life is fighting to equip California pro-lifers with understanding and the tools to again protect the unborn and other vulnerable innocents. Thank you for your help in this battle. Go to californiaprolife.org. That's californiaprolife.org for more information.
Life Matters is sponsored by the California Pro-Life Council, the state affiliate of the National Right to Life Committee. To find out more on how you can help and be involved right where you are, go to californiaprolife.org. That's californiaprolife.org. We'll tell you how you can get involved in your local community, how you can be effective if you want to be a pro-life speaker. We have training programs and open doors of opportunity for you to speak on the life issue. If you'd like to donate your car or a boat, you can do that at californiaprolife.org. Car Easy makes it easy, and you find that on our website. We get the most of any donation program. Car Easy allows us to get the most out of your car. Maybe you're not getting the trade-in value you wanted. Maybe it's just not running the way it used to. Let your car be used for life. Go to californiaprolife.org and find out what you can do to make a difference. californiaprolife.org.
Be sure to subscribe to the Life Matters podcast with Brian Johnston. Go to lifematters.life to subscribe. And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Welcome back to Life Matters, your program on the right to life, on the culture that has emanated from that very specific legal and philosophical statement. It's a statement of political philosophy that our founders put in their declaration when they started the American experiment in freedom. The right to life is a very specific thing. In fact, it even gets mentioned by our pro-abortion opponents. You're going to hear some interviews with folks who are pro-abortion advocates, and it's from a podcast from Vice. Vice is an online magazine, but it's much more. It's a whole communication industry of the radical left. And it's funded by many people, including George Soros. Well, they're very concerned about the language of life. They're scared because we're winning. We're winning the argument. But one of the reasons is we're using the right language. We are describing objective facts, and that terrifies our opponents, and they're seeing a need to have to move away from that. They want to keep changing the question of abortion rights. They want to keep changing because they're losing ground. That doesn't capture people's hearts and minds. So we're going to talk about the language that you and I use and why you want to emphasize the nature of that human child. That's what this debate is about. The debate's not about me. The debate's not about you. The debate is this a human being that's being killed? If you can stick to that, if you can demonstrate that in a way that's palpable to other people, you're going to win the debate. And it's important that you stick to the facts, that you use objective facts, that you use the objective reality of the law. As I said, if you don't know what Roe v. Wade and Doe v. Bolton, you have to view both of those Supreme Court decisions together. If you don't know what they do, you won't be able to win the legal arguments. So please understand that it's an argument about facts, but also the law and what's being allowed and promoted right now under the law. So if you've listened to our program before, you know that language is the heart of our challenge. Abortion advocates prefer not to use actual specifics that describe the procedure. They like to use words like choice, and it's one of the few words now that's accepted as literally meaning abortion, but it's actually a verb that doesn't have an object. What's being chosen is the real question. This isn't about choosing hair color. This isn't about choosing what kind of shoes you're going to buy or what car you buy. The question is, what is the choice? We like to talk about that. They don't want to talk about that. So language is critically important. You know, we've talked about in the euthanasia movement when they want to kill other vulnerable human beings, the elderly, the sick, the infirm. They talk about aid in dying. But that's not what they're legalizing. That's not what they're actually putting into effect. You see, the word dying is an intransitive verb. We're all going to die, by the way. But not all of us will be killed. And what they want to do is change the laws so that the law facilitates killing, intentionally bringing about that death of that vulnerable person. So there's a language game being played. You know, Mother Teresa, she was involved in helping people as they died. She comforted them. Good hospice. I've been a hospice volunteer. Maybe there's some hospice volunteers listening. Good hospice comforts people as they're dying. We are all going to die. But Mother Teresa never killed anyone. She never said, well, let's just speed this up and I'll kill them. And that is a very specific action that has been illegal historically. It has, through the history of medicine, been against the use of medicine to kill. It violates all of the principles of how we deal with vulnerable individuals. And that's what is really at stake. So the language is important. Again, dying is an intransitive verb. We're all going to die, but not all of us will be killed. Killing is a transitive verb. An outside individual who stays behind and often benefits from the killing. Maybe they're an heir, as they can be in California. They're going to benefit from this person being dead. So language is critically important. But we're seeing changes now on the abortion issue, and groups like NARAL. I want to read to you from Vice magazine. Vice is a magazine that was originally published in Montreal. It's a leftist magazine. It's moved to New York. And it's not a magazine anymore. It's podcasts and radio shows. They make television shows. It's the hard left. So I've listened into some of their programming, read their stuff. We do that so you don't have to. And the comforting thing is they're scared. They're afraid of the language that's being used to describe abortion, that in fact, they're losing the debate. And they're quickly looking at how to shift and how to reframe the debate, how to reframe the language. So let me read from an article very briefly. This, again, is in the magazine Vice. You can look it up if you want to. Pro-choice groups are changing their strategy for a new era of attacks on abortion. NARAL is shifting its strategy to embrace the term reproductive freedom, which polls well with moderates and independents. So instead of talking about pro-choice, they're moving towards reproductive freedom. NARAL Pro-Choice America, one of the largest pro-choice organizations in the country, is changing its communication strategy amid mounting attacks on abortion rights. In an exclusive interview, the group said it will place a greater emphasis on reproductive freedom, a framework its leadership believes will bring together a wider swath of the population in support of safe and legal abortion. Though NARAL has used the term in its messaging before, the group had relied more heavily on terms like reproductive rights and abortion access to talk about their cause. Now, of course, these are the results of polling that they've done, and they've seen how things have changed. The changes are the result of new research, and they have a research firm called Avalanche. Avalanche findings reflect the commonly cited statistic that somewhere between 60 and 70% of people support abortion in the United States. Of course, that's if the question is framed as choice, if the question doesn't talk about the humanity of the child in any way. According to their polling, which was conducted in May and June, and that's of 2019, the months during which several state abortion bans passed into law, 72% of American voters support the right to the procedure. Now, we can talk about that at many levels. The reality is that when New York State passed its law, that inverted. And when late-term abortion is discussed, and you're going to hear this from a Vice podcast. Again, Vice is a publication consortium, not just a magazine, but it's where the hard left promotes its education. And in this, they talk about the battle of language.
If we accept that language shapes our reality, then it would make sense that the way that we think about abortion, the way that it's legislated and regulated, and the polarized debate that swirls all around it has been influenced by terms like pro-life or late-term abortion. these terms come directly out of the anti-abortion movement. Cases like these, where the anti-abortion camp has created the words we use to talk about abortion, point out how much of our understanding of abortion care has been shaped by an inherent bias against it. Some people argue the implicit message that these words and phrases carry, that abortion is morally wrong or shameful, has managed to infiltrate the pro-choice side of the debate as well. Meaning that even the most ardent feminist advocates might find themselves inadvertently apologizing for abortion even as they fight for the universal right to access it.
They go on. NARAL is the second major pro-choice organization to shift its external messaging in the last month. On July 16th of 2019, former Planned Parenthood President Leana Wen was pushed out after spending her 8-month tenure attempting to depoliticize abortion and frame it solely as a healthcare concern. Similar to NARAL, the group is moving away from traditional categories in the fight for abortion rights like pro-choice and pro-life, focusing instead on attacks on abortion and what it means not to have the ability to access it, according to Planned Parenthood spokesperson. So if you recall, for the very brief tenure that Leana Wen was president of Planned Parenthood, she did not want to get into the strident politicization of it, and that alienated the board of Planned Parenthood. They want to make sure abortion is front and center, and they were losing ground. I'm reading again from Vice magazine. Again, we read this so you don't have to. The shakeups at the two national organizations have some advocates worried that the de facto leaders of the pro-choice movement are scrambling to find cogent, unified messaging at a time when they need it most. This is very significant. And we're going to hear in just a moment from a podcast from Vice, and it's The World Now by Vice, where they talk about this and the woman who wrote these articles. So I think you're going to find some very interesting insights in what they feel they need to do in the battle for language, because language is where the battle of ideas really happens.
There are so many of these terms that when you look deeper into the history of the language, you find that they were introduced by the anti-abortion movement. And what you look at, as you said, is how this has sort of framed how the pro-choice movement has sort of in turn had to react to that, and even some of the language that those activists use now. So in this episode, we're going to make our way through a bunch of those different terms. You mentioned two of them already, but I want to start with kind of the most obvious use of strategic language coming from the anti-abortion camp, which is the term pro-life. So we have pro-life and pro-choice. And this term pro-life is quite powerful, and there's an interesting history to it. So will you talk a little bit about that?
So I just want to start off and say that it is difficult to kind of pinpoint the exact origins of, the first use of these terms, but we do have a pretty good idea of their evolution and where they stemmed from. So pro-life is actually a term that was sort of adapted from this progressive parenting book from the 1960s. It was written by this famous Scottish educator who was promoting a progressive, quote, pro-life approach to parenting. But then in the later half of the decade, anti-abortion activists kind of adapted that language, and they started using the term right to life.
Life Matters continues after this.
You know about our car donation program at California Pro-Life. We use one of the most respected programs in the nation. Go to the California Pro-Life page, californiaprolife.org. Scroll to the bottom and click on Donate My Car. It's that easy. Did you know you can also donate any vehicle, boat, motorhome, or even personal property? If you are nearing retirement age, you can also get a tax deduction by earmarking a portion of your upcoming compulsory distributions from your 401k. Just email us for information. California Pro-Life is fighting to equip California pro-lifers with understanding and the tools to again protect the unborn and other vulnerable innocents. Thank you for your help in this battle. Go to californiaprolife.org. That's californiaprolife.org for more information.
Hi, I'm Kevin Sorbo, and I was very excited when I heard about LifeFest Film Festival. LifeFest is the film festival dedicated to showcasing films that affirm the intrinsic worth of innocent human life and the profound significance of each life. One seemingly insignificant person can in fact change the whole world in which he or she lives. That one singular life ends up being of vital importance. I'm so glad to hear that you are cherishing that in this film festival and are committed to artfully and creatively protect the lives of those who can't possibly promote themselves.
Life Film Fest is dedicated to bring the message of life to Hollywood and to our culture. Go to lifefilmfest.com and get your tickets now. That's lifefilmfest.com.
Find out about the exciting cultural change impacting Hollywood. Go to lifefilmfest.com. And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Now you'll note that the redefining how the right to life as a word came about. You and I know that the right to life was actually coined by America's founders. That isn't something that was coined intentionally by the pro-life movement. That's actually a premise of our laws. And that premise echoes throughout the Constitution in the 5th and 14th Amendment. No one shall be deprived of their life, liberty, or property without due process of law. So the due process provision echoes the right to life principle. But more importantly, we see that they want to redefine these terms. And it's important that you not allow that to happen. The battle for life is the battle for language. And you can tell how afraid they are of the phrase pro-life and right to life.
After Roe v. Wade, as the anti-abortion movement kind of crystallized, they migrated to using the term pro-life and really found a lot of success in, as you said, the simplicity and the power of the word life, which is something that pro-choice advocates have expressed concern about to me, how anti-abortion activists have really, laid claim to that word life.
And conversely, I'm curious how the term pro-choice was decided on as kind of the counterpoint to pro-life.
Yeah, so around the same time the anti-abortion movement settled on pro-life, what now we call the pro-choice movement was trying to figure out what the best way was to counter such a powerful term. So there's this document from a woman who was at the time the executive director of this group known as the Association for the Study of Abortion, and she circulated this memo where she argued that choice was the best way to counter the term life. And I just want to read her quote because I think it just really encapsulates kind of what the thinking was at the time.
Yeah, please do.
So she writes, "Right to life is short, catchy, composed of monosyllabic words, an important consideration in English. We need something comparable. Right to choose would seem to do the job, and choice has to do with action, and it's action that we're concerned with." So it's almost a question of branding and what kind of message you want to send about the movement. And you can tell that she was really carefully considering how the term would resonate with the public. I think another interesting kind of point on the timeline that I uncovered, I found out about because I spoke to the president of the National Organization for Women, Toni Van Pelt. She got involved with NOW in 1989, and she said she remembers there being a conversation about whether the organization should embrace pro-choice. There was a strong argument at the time that the pro-choice movement should actually brand itself as pro-abortion and just be really unapologetic about taking a stance for supporting access to abortion through language. So there are a few different moments where the movement as a whole, as well as specific feminist organizations, had to choose to go the route of using the term pro-choice.
Now, I don't have the time to play this entire interview, but it's very, very informative. And it shows that the pro-abortion side realizes the power of language, and language that gets across objective facts about the humanity of the child. One of the points I find very interesting is they do not like how Bill Clinton, a leading abortion advocate, phrased abortion and his use of the phrase that it should be safe, legal, and rare. And that's their greatest concern, that there is an apology in advocating for abortion. Implicit is the notion that there's something bad about abortion.
I want people to think about the language that they use to talk about this issue and challenge their own understanding of abortion and how the language they use might affect someone's access to getting abortion.
Right. I think that that's a really good takeaway, which is I could see how someone might approach this piece and think, yeah, this is too scholarly, this is abstract. But I mean, I think what your piece actually does is it says, actually, the language we use has real life implications. It manifests itself in policy. It manifests itself in how easy or not easy it is for people to access abortions. And those are, real tangible things. And language does play a role in culture and in policy. So I think that just in writing your piece and in having this conversation and acknowledging the perception that it might be abstract and then kind of cracking that open and saying, no, this is abstract on the one hand, but on the other hand, it has a real life effect is a really important thing.
So I hope you understand that the battle for life and the battle for the laws is first and foremost fought in the realm of language and ideas. And if you don't watch your language, as our opponents are trying to do, if you don't recognize that language has power, then lives are at stake. So make sure you listen carefully. Make sure that you make distinctions when you're talking to your friends. And again, it isn't just in the public policy sense. Sometimes some of these battles are going to take place really with people you love at your kitchen table. And you're going to want to make distinctions to clarify what's being spoken of. They don't want to talk about it. When it comes to euthanasia, as I said, aid in dying, comfort or compassion. But compassion means to bear another's suffering. To kill them is not compassionate. And so it's important that you listen to what people are saying, that you make sure that you let them know that you respect them as individuals, but cut through the deceitful language that is being used to kill innocent human beings. This battle is real, it's on us, and it's one that we have to fight. Make sure that you're doing it because life matters.
Life Matters is a production of the California Pro-Life Council, the state affiliate of National Right to Life.